Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and in today's video I will show you how to do the takeoff performance calculation using the EFB in the iniBuilds A310 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So the basic data we need is what we already have available, so that is stuff like the runway length or the wind data. Now, when we click on the respective fields, the keyboard comes up, and for the takeoff run available and the runway QDM, which primarily means the runway course, we already get the original data from the flight simulator selected for us. Now, if you want to go easy, you're just going to insert that, but I have my Navigraph charts open on here, and of course that is not just a coincidence. So what we can do as well is to calculate an intersection takeoff, which means that we do not have to taxi all the way to the end of the runway. And here's how we would find out about the length of the runway that we would have to enter in that case. A small note before we are going into the chart is that when you are using the runway length available over here, you are actually only able to select this once you have selected your departure runway in the FMC. So only then this field will pop up. Now, for our case, we are going to depart from runway 26 right, which is the runway we have up here. And of course we could go full length, which would be alpha 14, as we can see over here. But we may want to take an earlier intersection in order to avoid having to taxi all the way to the back. And to do that, we can use the scale that we have on the chart down here. So, first of all, let's see, alpha 13 we should definitely calculate, because that is so close that we should definitely take our takeoff data at least from there. But we can go on and we can take, for example, data from alpha 12, which would give us a little bit more runway, or a little bit less taxi time, not more runway, my apologies. So, in order to do that, we basically take this length of the runway, and now we hold that against the scale that we have down here. And if we do that, personally, you could just take a piece of paper and maybe put that in, or you could of course also go ahead and just use your fingers to measure that length. And if I do that, this ends up to be approximately a quarter of the runway. And holding that against the scale, be sure to take the correct units of measurement, so we are using meters. That comes out at approximately 1000 meters. So if we do want to calculate our takeoff data from the intersection alpha 12, we would subtract 1000 meters from the maximum runway length available. The runway length itself is 4000 meters, so we are going to subtract 1000 from that, which gives us 3000 meters runway length, which is what we're going to use for our departure. So in here we will take 3000. The runway condition is currently dry. Runway QDM refers to the course of the runway itself, and you can either click on it and then you are going to get the actual runway QDM from the simulator down here, which you could simply use, or you can have a look at your departure chart if you don't want to cheat and see over here that the runway has a QDM of 260 in real life. So we are going to enter 260 for this one. The wind is the wind as reported in the weather report. In our case, the wind is currently calm, so we will enter 0 at 0. Temperature, we have 15 degrees, which we are going to enter in here, and the QNH is currently 1013. That enters the runway conditions. Let's go ahead with our aircraft configuration now. The weight refers to the takeoff weight that we're going to have, and you can either get that from the weight and balance page over here. Just take your gross weight, which is 111.5 now, or if you don't want to go back to the mass and balance page, you can also have a look at your ecam, and you can find it down here, 111.3. But for our purposes, we are just going to take it from the mass and balance page, always round it up, so in our case it is currently 111.5. Now, if you're wondering where the difference comes from the weight from the ecam or from the mass and balance page, that's because we are running the APU. The APU is burning a little bit of fuel, and that is in turn causing the difference in the data. Now, since we have this selected, we can now go ahead and choose our takeoff flap setting. Personally, I would not recommend you to use 15/0, which would be only the slats extended, not the flaps, but I would go at least for the first flap setting, so 15/15. The anti-ice is going to be off, air conditioning will be on. And with all of that data entered, we can now hit calculate, and the computer is calculating our takeoff speeds and the flex temperature for us. So in our case, we have 135, 136 and 161 with a flex temperature of 57 degrees centigrade. Now let's go ahead and enter this data into the flight management computer. Remember those values up here, so 135, 136. When we go over to the FMC, we are going to put that in up here, 135, 136. And the V2 is taken directly from the flight control unit, so from the autopilot panel. So we are going to go ahead and set that up there. Remember, 161 knots. So let's put 161 knots into the speed restriction up here. And you will see that the FMC has now automatically taken that over into its own values. The last thing that we can think about, but don't have to, is the thrust reduction and acceleration altitudes. Now we are going to fly the reduction and acceleration each 1,000 feet above the ground. So what we're going to do, we take our airport elevation, which is 1,500, as you can see on the altimeter. We will enter 2,500, so 1,000 above that, into both the thrust reduction and the acceleration altitudes. Note that there is an option available in the electronic flight bag that you can make 1000 above the field elevation your default values. Now that we have entered our takeoff performance data into the FMC, the last thing we have to do is to enter our flex temperature. You can find that up here on the output page, and it is 57 degrees. So let's go over to the thrust management computer, select flex takeoff, and select 57 degrees. Now you are going to see the limit mode is still takeoff, but down here we see target of 96.6, which is less than the upmost takeoff limit thrust, and that means that our flex temperature is correctly entered. I would like to thank you very much for watching. Hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you do want to support the channel, please leave a like, comment and subscribe. And finally, if you really want to support the channel, you can do so through the Buy Me a Coffee link that you can find in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you have enjoyed today's video.